It's time for the Rick Smith Show. Now, here is the voice of the working class, Rick Smith.
I've got my good friend Sara Nelson on the phone. She is the president of the Association of Flight Attendants, CWA. Their website, afacwa.org, if you want to check out the fantastic work that she is doing. In fact, she is by far my favorite labor leader in the entire country because, look, at the end of the day, it's about bringing people together and being, well, just a little bit militant. And Sara, I appreciate you sticking around through the break for us.
Absolutely. You're my favorite too. So why would I not be here?
If you've got a question for Sara, give us a call, 1-866-416-RICK. That's 1-866-416-7425 if you've got a question for Sara Nelson. Here's the thing. Every time I turn on TikTok or Twitter or I see insanity on planes. Your members and flight attendants are just being sadly brutalized by what we're seeing every day. And I said this a while ago. I think we should be going to ejection seats at this point over these mask mandates and people who just haven't figured out how to behave themselves. What the heck is going wrong with people?
I mean, the first thing that you should know is that it's not really just about the masks. That narrative has been driven by people who want to perpetuate the conflict and a reason to have conflict on planes. And so it's really people who are just angry about being told anything, being given any instruction. It's the absolute pushing of alcohol in the airports so that we're dealing with more people who have had too much to drink and have forgotten how that's going to affect them on a plane. There are people who bring their own alcohol onto planes, even though that's against federal regulations and they can be fined and they're not supposed to be doing that. But yeah, we're bearing the brunt of the discussion in this country that we are at odds with each other and that everything is politicized and that we're in the middle of the biggest crisis that our country, that our world has faced in 100 years. And you wouldn't know it because normally in a crisis, there are leaders who marshal every effort to bring people together around the common enemy, which is the crisis, not each other, and get everyone working together to solve it. And that is just not, we've had the exact opposite experience here with the leadership who was in charge at first in the White House, and then those who have been left behind in state houses and also as different representatives from Congress. So we've had a different narrative in this crisis, and it has kept people in a constant state of not knowing what to believe, where to get good information, and to really distrust any kind of authority. And we have seen the brunt of that, and we have felt the brunt of it on our planes. We're not the only ones. I mean, people working in retail and in the post office and at restaurants, they're all facing this. The only difference for us is that we're stuck with them in a metal tube flying miles above the earth. And we can't just pull over or eject them, as your latest solution is, which I might be behind if we could figure out how to do that with science. But yeah, I mean, it is a problem, and it has been made a problem because we have not had the kind of leadership that marshals the solidarity that people really want to feel in their lives. That's what people will respond to if you simply give them good information and talk about what the real enemy is, which is not each other.
No, you're right. I was just reading a story over at Boston.com where the Transit Authority police arrested a guy because he pulled a knife on someone because the guy was wearing a mask. And I'm going, how ridiculous and childish and idiotic can we possibly be? And that seems to be at the center of a lot of this, that it's come down to this the virus, the vaccine, all of this. And I'm not sure where we're going because the next wave is coming through.
Well, and look, those people have to be held accountable, and there has to be consequences there. People who act out like this have got to go to jail. But I also, frankly, feel like they are a victim in all of this because they have been fed a line of BS that has made them act Looney Tunes and act against their, fellow citizen who is in this with them. If we could just build our unions, have a place where people come together around the issues that we all recognize as common issues in the workplace. Safety in the workplace, the living wage. Oh, by the way, these are all the things that the union busters have in their handbook are buzzwords that, might mean that a union is coming on. So look out for those and be careful about that. And then tell people that they shouldn't be for a living wage for themselves, which is kind of hilarious, except that it works. But if we can form more unions and we can have the ability for workers to come together and feel that they have a sense of power to change their own lives, then we have a chance for people to come together and talk who otherwise might not.
Yeah.
And we have a chance to heal this country and move forward together.
No, and it's something we desperately need. Do you think, as I do, that a lot of the polarization that we see is because a large segment of the population has kind of been left behind in this economy, and that they're more susceptible to fall for the others argument, for the divisive tactics that keep popping up?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, when we squeeze people dry, and then we act as though their voice doesn't matter, they're going to listen to the first person who comes along and tells them that they matter, whether they're selling them the Brooklyn Bridge or actually trying to feed them a hot meal. So it's a problem when you stretch people that thin and when you treat them as disposable and you create an economy that perpetuates that. That is a problem, especially if you're not willing to address those issues. And that's why, the agenda that's on the table right now before Congress is so important, because we have to do things for regular people. And a lot of people want to have the enemies. So we want to talk about taxing the rich in order to do these things. We should tax the rich. We should tax the rich just because it matters for our democracy. But we don't have to tax the rich in order to do good things for the people. Look at the difference between these plans and the size of the military budget. We have the money to do good things for the people. And when you do good things for the people, this reminds me of when I was in Minneapolis the day before Election Day. And I asked my cab driver, so what's your plan to vote tomorrow? And he's like, oh, Election Day is tomorrow? And I said, yeah, what's your plan to vote? And he said, well, that's when I'm going to be doing my other job. And so I don't think I'm going to be able to vote. I mean, if you keep people that busy and that desperate, and they don't think that the elections have any consequences for them,
right,
for themselves in their own lives, they're not going to participate. And that's the whole point of stopping these programs. That, the GOP knows that when you break down government, when you break down any kind of safety nets, when you break down any programs for regular people, people are going to check out. They're not going to think that government or any of this process has anything to do with them. And that's about then becoming demoralized and checking out and thinking that they have no power in their own lives. When we give people the ability to understand that they can take on their employers, make a difference right there and then, they're much more likely then to also participate in our democracy. And so the two go hand in hand, and we've got to do the things that help the people on the front lines, that give people the ability to have childcare, to be able to go to work, that give people the ability to care for a sick parent or a sick child and not have to lose your job during that time. And if we don't have those programs, then we're not going to have people who understand what this democracy is to them.
No, you're absolutely right. And we have a media culture that focuses on, I think, on the if it bleeds, it leads mentality. And I point to this most recent story written by Judd Legum over at Popular Information at his Substack. He pointed out that one of the stories in San Francisco of a guy filling a garbage bag full of stuff, somewhere, I guess it was worth between $200 and $1,000. It was reported on some like 300 odd times between June 14th and July 12th. But Walgreens, when Walgreens got caught stealing from its employees, and we're talking millions of dollars, back in November of 2020, when they agreed, or they paid $4.5 million to settle a class action suit, it got one story. And you go, am I missing something here?
Well, no, you're not, because the truth is that people can identify with the one person and they can say, how could he, how could she, and they can feel better in their own lives, and we can use the shame game. And that's what keeps people from talking about the fact that they can't afford their rent. I mean, we poverty shame all the time to keep people quiet, and people can relate to those individual stories. They can't actually relate to this big corporation. There's nothing to relate to there. And so, they get away with murder essentially. Or they decide that they're going to just build a spaceship and go to the moon, or Mars. And so, we have to recognize though that if we're talking about real people, those are the stories that people can relate to. And that is how we're going to change this world. And so that's why when I say, if we're totally focused on taxing the billionaires, taxing the uber rich, people can be mad at them. But number one, those people are never going to vote away their money. Okay. And so if we're putting that hurdle in front of us for doing good things for people, it's never going to happen.
Right.
But also, we can't relate to those people. Let's talk about the needs of the people on the front lines and what's happening with them. Let's talk about the fact that flight attendants who are facing this violence at work, 61% of the time, that's also accompanied with sexist, racist, or homophobic slurs. And people are being attacked very personally. Let's talk about what people are going through and what it feels like then to put that uniform back on when they have to go to work, and take that on even before they go to work and feel the heaviness of that, and have their families say, are you sure you want to go? We don't want you to go. We don't know if you're going to be safe. Let's talk about those things and see how that affects people, and see how we can actually move people to demand from their representatives that we fix these issues.
Yeah,
so we should learn from that and organize around it.
And I wish they would do in every workplace what has happened on airlines. With the kind of fines and the penalties that might be coming. Now, I've read that the fines and penalties aren't what we think they are. They usually reduce them down. But they're a lot better than the restaurant worker who's getting things thrown at her or argued with or spit on, or the insanity that we see in these places, which I don't know why anyone does those jobs in this moment. And thank goodness they do, and I wish them the best. But we also have to do something to protect them.
Yeah, but let's also recognize that those restaurant workers are usually working for tipped wages. And so what that means is they're earning $2 an hour from their employer, and counting on that person who is spitting at them or sexually harassing them to give them their wages. What kind of a system are we setting up there for people to be exploited? So yeah. I mean, you're right. Let's have some actual consequences for people so they understand that the rules actually are the rules. I mean, this is basic stuff when you're raising children, right? Or for a teacher who has to run a classroom with any kind of order to keep everyone safe. But beyond that, though, let's recognize that the vast majority of people actually want to be helpers and actually want to be a part of something bigger than themselves. And so if we look for leaders who are going to bring us together and actually promote solidarity, we're going to have a better experience too.
No, I'm right there with you. You're listening to The Rick Smith Show here with Sara Nelson, president of the Association of Flight Attendants, CWA. AFACWA.org, their website, if you want to take a look at the work that they do. Last line of questioning I've got for you, and I'm looking at the Biden administration, 5.8 million jobs created during his tenure, the lowest new job claims that they're saying in the last 52 years. Things seem to be moving in the right direction. At least that's what it looks like from my perspective. I'm curious, how do you think Joe's doing to this point?
I mean, Joe, can I say it, Rick? He was handed a shit bag. I mean, he has a lot to clean up here, right? We are literally in the middle of a 100-year crisis that is still going on, and that is not going to end unless we get the entire world mobilized to end it. And so I think Joe gets pretty high marks for what he's done with a pretty divided Congress. So let's recognize that too. It's not as though he can just wave a magic wand and do everything he wants to do. He's done some really good work, and he put in place again the program that we had, which was Workers First. And the results of that have meant that the airline industry stayed intact. But what that really meant was that the workers stayed connected to our paychecks and our healthcare and paying taxes and doing all of those things. And now we're talking about all these people back in the air. Guess what? Where we gave money to corporations and they could spend it and they could decide how they were going to spend it, that's where we're seeing inflation. In the airlines, where we said the money can only go to the workers, there's no inflation. And in fact, airline ticket prices have gone down. So isn't that very interesting that while we're talking about inflation and why we can't do things, the rest of the things that we need to do for people, because that's going to create more inflation, that's BS too. It's about how we structure our economy and how we tell people how the money has to be spent. And if we're building it from the ground up, it's going to work. And if we build it from, if we agree with this mythical perception of trickle down, then we're going to have the experience that we've had to date. And Joe has been fighting against that and building something from the ground up. And so for that, I give him high marks. I think the rest of us have a job to do, though, to get him the support that he needs to get the programs that he's been talking about and championing, and to get things like the PRO Act that he has been an advocate for. Now, where I would give some criticism is that the President of the United States does not need to stay neutral in these strikes. The President of the United States needs to stand for the people and should get involved in these strikes and settle them, make sure that they're getting settled, because there is no respect for collective bargaining. And absolutely, that is the President's job to make sure that collective bargaining does work. So that is my big criticism of the President. But otherwise, I think all of us have a lot of work to do to get behind the policies that he's trying to put in place and the job that he's already done, and talk about that and how much he's done to turn our country around.
No, you're absolutely right. Maybe he could borrow some comfortable shoes from Barack Obama. They're unused.
Yeah, except, not the ones that Obama wore to Wisconsin. Oh, wait, he didn't wear shoes to Wisconsin. So, no, I think.
That's why I said they were unused.
Get the president's. I see. Yes, you're right. You're right. It's not just about saying the word union. It's about actually respecting unions and union members, especially, and that collective bargaining.
Sara, I appreciate the time. It's always great talking with you. I hope you'll come back again and talk to us again real soon.
Thanks so much, Rick. And I'm so happy that you're getting out all over the country. Everybody donate to Rick. We need more Rick everywhere.
There you go. I like that. More Rick everywhere. Thank you, Sara. Sara Nelson, president of the Association of Flight Attendants, CWA, afacwa.org, their website. Make sure you take a look at the work that they do.